Right, so welcome to a new guide on this channel, and on this occasion is the wavetable. Now this is not a review, it's a deep dive guide about this synth. Everything in this guide is in chapters, so if you look at the description or the timeline, you can jump to a section or skip the ones you don't want. So if you like this guide, please like and subscribe, and if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee, you can check the links at the description. Alright, so let's get the obvious out of the way. This is a wavetable synthesizer, so first we're going to cover the oscillators, then the filters, then the envelopes, and then everything else. Now first we need to start right here with the thing that makes the sound. So okay, you have two oscillators, the 1 and the 2, and you can turn them on and off from here, from this tiny little button. On each oscillator, if I play something, you have independent gain. You can go up in gain as much as you like, and also you can just pan it to the left or you can pan it to the right. And if double clicking, is going to take you back to the center. Same with the gain. If I double click it, it's going to go all the way up on the gain. So at the bottom left, you can just detune in semitones all the way up to 2 octaves. Double clicking is going to take you back to the the original, and then you can detune by sense, just tiny little values. And again, double clicking is going to go back to the center. Now, since this is a wavetable, you can sweep the wavetables. Now, you can sweep it manually. If I play something, I can just go with my mouse right here and just sweep it with my mouse. And that's it. We're gonna sweep that wavetable, but you can use this slider if you wish. Go all the way up or all the way down. It's just completely up to you. So with wavetables, you have a lot of options. You can choose between a lot of different wavetables. So right here, you have your two main categories. The first one is going to be the basics, right? And then you have a lot of different ones: distortion, filter, formant, harmonics. Yeah, you have a lot, right? You just need to do some exploring right here. Now, the thing is that if you want to, for example, change the different categories, you can do it with your keys. You don't need to do it with your mouse. I'm pressing the up and down arrow. So you're going to be just changing the different categories just like that. And it's just very simple to do. Now, the other thing is that you have, for each category, you have all the subcategories. Right? So you can go to sub, and again, right here is the same deal. You can use the up and down keys to go down and then go up, and just, do it a little bit faster. You do have the arrows right here, so you can go, up, and you can go down, but they're just very little, and it's just much easier to use your keyboard. But you need to make sure that you're standing on this section, that you have that selected. If you don't have it selected, it's just, it's not gonna work. Alright, so let me just go back to basic shapes. Now, the other thing that you get is right here, the way to visualize the wavetable. How you sweep it, and all the different shapes that you have. The other way is the polar view that not a lot of synthesizers have. Just, a different way of visualizing how the sounds evolve within the wavetable, right? Pretty simple. Okay, so I know all of this is just super easy to understand, and maybe you already know it, but this is a deep dive, so I need to go through this. Now, you also have user wavetables. So if you go right here, and all the way to the bottom is going to say user. Now, when you go to user, there's nothing right here. So you can drag and drop your own, files. They need to be a WAV or AIF, whatever you want to call it, and that it's going to be turned into a wavetable. I have something right here prepared, and it's a free, list of wavetables that you get from the web. I just downloaded it, and, I'm going to be throwing a wavetable. So I'm going to grab this one, and I'm going to throw it right here. Once you do so, there you go. You have your wavetable. Right? Now, when you throw something that lives within a directory just like this, it will not add just that file. It will add pretty much everything that you have on that directory. So when you go to there, there, it's just going to give you that wavetable. So yeah, so you can throw whatever you want as long as it's, the right format, and it will just turn it to a wavetable. Now, by default, what it's doing behind the scenes is going to treat, or is going to process the file to be treated as a wavetable, because sometimes you might throw a file that it's not wavetable ready. It was not created to be used as a wavetable, so you might be getting pops and clicks. Now, this is by default what it does is going to convert and treat that file. But you also, when you're standing on the user mode, you have a raw. So the raw means that Ableton will not do this. It will not prepare your file as a wavetable. It's just going to use whatever raw file you throw. So this is how it sounds raw. And this is how it sounds when, with the processing of Ableton. So if you already know that your wavetable is, really prepared to be used as a wavetable, you might want to use the raw. If not, you just can use this one if it sounds correctly. Now, these ones are the bottom, and for now, I'm just going to go back to basics and basic shapes because I know that we all have this same, wavetable. So right here, you have more options, and this is called the effects section. Now, maybe they should be called modifiers or, I don't know, modulators or something like this, because effects is just, maybe a little bit confusing. Now, these ones are not audio effects. They're not like reverb or delays. What they will do, they will take the waveform that you're using and shape it or alter the waveform somehow. And this is just going to turn whatever sound that you're using to something completely different. Now, each of the effects have two properties, so you don't get a lot of control. You only have two properties. I'm going to go to the first one. The none is just going to be none. Then the first one is going to be FM. And as you could assume, this is, FM, just classic FM. But again, you just don't get a lot of control. You only get a tune and you get an amount. Now, the amount is going to be how much of the of FM you're going to be doing to your oscillator. And if I go up in the amount, we are just going to be doing a lot, which is not a lot, it's just enough. But this is like depth or intensity. Now the other one, since maybe you know FM, you could change the ratio of the modulator that goes to the carrier. And that will be changed, the ratio will be changing the ratio. So all the way up, if I go all the way crazy, all the way up on the tune is 2 octaves. 50% is going to be 1 octave, and everything in between is going to be, between octaves. Now, right here, you don't have some way specific to set the ratios. You need to go by ear. Yeah, that's the only thing you can do. You need to go by ear. Now, still, if you want to do FM synthesis, you have a different synthesizer on Ableton, which is the operator. Maybe you want to check that one out. And so I'm going to double click, go back to the beginning, and the next one is going to be the classic one. And this one, it is classic. You have pulse width modulation and you have sync. So on analog synths, what you can do, and I'm going to go to the square. What you do, you reduce the width of the square or pulse. If I play it, it's going to be a little bit loud. So you know what? I'm going to go down in volume. So there we go, just a little bit better. So we only just need to see right here. So when we reduce the pulse width, what we do, we adjust the width of the pulse. And we just make it narrow, or you will go back to wide. The other way, right? Now, the thing is that on analog synths, we can only do this with pulse waveforms. But since this is digital, right, the wavetable is a digital type of synthesizer, we can do it whatever we want. So if I go to the sine wave and adjust the width, it's giving me that. So we can use it on anything. The other thing is going to be the sync. Now, usually sync needs 2 oscillators, and the first oscillator needs to be the master, and the other one needs to be the slave. So it's just a classic type of, just modulation, let's say. So I'm going to play something, and I'm going to move the sync. Maybe I'm going to go to a saw, something like that. So this is what we'll do. It's a classic type of sync sound, right? It's just very classic. That's why it says classic. So you can do both at the same time. You can even do a pulse width and a sync. And all of this is just gonna, sound very differently. If I go to the sine wave, this is just changes how it sounds. Right. So pretty simple, just a classic sync and a classic pulse width modulation. If I go to the last one it's modern, and this is 2 types of phase distortion. So first is warp, which is going to be similar to the pulse width, but it's just going to be changing the waveform a little bit differently. That is that there is a tiny little difference. And we can do it to all the different waveforms and wavetables, right? So this is what the warp is going to do. Notice that we can go positive numbers and then negative numbers. Now the fold is wave folding. Is just a bit more aggressive, let's say. Right. Now This is what you can do with the effects. Again, you just get two controls. You don't get a lot of control in all the different type of effects. Now, when you go to none, it will do none of this. But still, you have something right here. So if I go to 22% and then, 45% and I play something, I can go to the FM and it's going to remember those percentages. So if I'm standing right here, I can, with my arrow keys, I can go up and down and just sweep through the different effects and just, maybe just check or maybe pick one that I like. Now, I'm going to go right here and then I'm just going to turn off the oscillators and I play something and I get nothing. So what you get on this one is going to be a sub-oscillator. Now, this is essentially a sine wave. Essentially, if I go maybe up on the sub, we can see it on the spectrum. The tone all the way down means that this is a sine wave. Now, the things that are going up in tone, it will make it evolve. And at some point, we get a lot of harmonics. And it's going to evolve to a pulse. So yeah, that's what you can do with the tone. So tone actually, it's kind of a changing your waveform. That's pretty much what you do. Now you can, since this is a sub, you can go to 0 octaves or you can go down. You cannot go up. And then just to blend with the different oscillators, it's just gonna make a real difference. Now, one more thing that you can do with the sub is that you can transpose it. And let me just turn this off. Now, right here, you have the transpose. I'm going to stand on 0. So, it's not super low, but still you can go high, really high, or you can go up in semitones, right? You can go really down. Now, at the end of the day, you should be using this as a sub because it's a sub. But, you can use it as you like. You can use it as a, just a standard oscillator. Now, you already have two. Maybe you don't need to. But still, you are the designer right here. So you can use it in whatever shape or form you will like. Right, so the filters are really cool because you have two. You have the first one and then you have the second one that by default it's disabled. So you can just toggle the different filters from this button. You can just turn the first one on or the second one on and you're going to be getting something like that. Notice that it's a kind of a weird shape. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Now, for now, I'm just going to turn the second one on and I'm just going to keep the first one. Now, all the filters can do pretty much the same. You have different shapes. You have a low pass, you have a high pass, then you can go to a band pass, then you have a notch, and at the end, you have a multi-mode, which is a morphing filter. So if I play something, maybe just put it around there, and I keep moving this, it's going to morph from a low pass to a band pass, to a high pass, to a notch, and then it's going to go back to a low pass. So this is a way to modulate, sound. It's just a way of modulating this. You can throw a modulator, just modulate this as much as you like. Again, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different types of filters. Now, on top of that, I'm going to go to the low pass. You can use the 12 dB per octave, which is not super aggressive. And then you can use the 24 dB per octave, which is going to be a lot more aggressive. Then you have your frequency, which is, how much you're going to be cutting or, chopping. And then you have your resonance, which is going to be adding a peak at the breakpoint right here. Now, all of these are just standard controls. Now, then you have another section, and it's going to be the type of filter. So you have different emulations of, of this filter that you're using, and it works for both. Everything that you see right here, you have the same options that here. It's just the same filter. Now, the thing is that right here, you can choose a clean filter, and a clean is a all-around common filter, but it's super efficient on CPU, so it's just not going to consume a lot of memory and resources. That's why you get it. But the other ones are going to be a little bit different. They will consume a little bit more, but they have a different characters because they are emulations. Now, the OSR, and if I go right there, the OSR is an emulation of, of an Oscar synthesizer, not a holy grail synthesizer, but it's an emulation as well. Now, usually you make a difference, really can tell the difference between the oscillators when you sweep it with resonance. If I change the OSR to a clean, it's just different when you move it. And if I go to the OSR, it's a bit more smoother and natural. Again, it's just Always depends on what you want to do. Now, let me just go back down. Then you have the other one. It's going to be MS2. And it says on the manual, at least Ableton says, that this is an emulation of a silent key type of filter, which is on the, what you get, something like, almost what you get on an MS-20 type of filter. So you can boost the frequency. And you get that, that vibe. Now, I own an MS-20, and it doesn't sound like this. It's a lot, you get a more cranky sound on an MS-20 filter, but still, you get that nice emulation. Now, if I keep it around there and change between OSR, notice that the sound changes. So they are just, different types of filters. Now, then the other one, the SMP. Now, this one is good. I'm gonna go first to this one. This one is a ladder type of filter. So you don't get on which one this is based, which emulation of this, because a million synthesizers use ladder filter, but this is what it is a ladder filter. Right. Now then you have the other one, the SMP, and this is a hybrid between the MS2 and the PRD. If I again stay right here, they're gonna all sound very differently, and you can change them with your arrow keys. Right. Now there's one more thing that you need to know. We are standing on clean, and if we go right here, we have all the options available, right? So we can do a cutoff, we can do whatever we want. Now if I go right here, notice that we don't get the other options, and it's because for a low pass, you get all the options available. For a high pass, you get all the options available. But for the other ones, you just get the clean and the OSR. And if we go there to the band pass, clean and OSR, and then the morphing is going to be clean and OSR. So again, you really need to know this because, again, maybe if you want to use something like a bandpass and the MS2, well, it's not available for you. All right, so I'm going to bring a default patch, and we need to talk about the option that we have right here at the bottom. This is really important for this filter because you have two. So what you can do, you can use it as in serial mode, you can use it in parallel, or you can use it as split. So when you use it on serial, it's like the usual common way of using a low pass and high pass filter. Now, if I do something like this, we are just chopping the low frequencies with the second one and the higher frequencies with the first one. So this is how an MS-20 would work, for example. You just lows, highs, and you just adjust the low pass and high pass independently. Now, the cool thing is that since this is so, versatile, you can just choose different things, and all of this is just going to give you, different sounds. Maybe I'm going to do something like that. If I move the other one, right, the movement is just going to create different things. So again, the serial, it's like, again, connecting two different pedals. The effective one is going to go to the second one, right? So whatever goes to the one is going to go to the other one. Now, this is just, again, normal. And you can see it on the drawing right here. The first one goes to the second one. Now, then you have the parallel. And I'm going to go right now. If I go there, notice how it looks. So it's going to route whatever sound that you are using or whatever you're doing to the one, but it also will go and send it to the second one. So for now, I'm just going to turn the first one off. And notice that it's not affecting the other one. The other one goes gray. But if I move this and I chop the high frequencies, notice it's just doing it. Now, if I turn it off, we are not doing anything. But notice that we are not chopping everything. We still get some sound, even if I'm just cutting a lot of frequencies right here. It is because one part of the signal is going on the second channel and it's not being affected by this filter. Now, if I go to a low pass and I just turn it on, now we are just chopping the high frequencies with both filters. But this is doing it to the one side of the chain, and this is doing it to the other one. So now we can have one movement on the one chain and a different one on the other one. And again, what goes here is both oscillators and sub. And we can affect whatever it is that we are using on a different way. So the next is going to be the split, because this is good, but what happens if we want to, for example, not use this one, right? We just don't want it, but we don't want for the sound to go or to pass through. Well, we will just need to chop as much as you want and then use this one, right? But the thing is that sometimes that sucks, so what you get is the other one, which is going to be the split. This one is really different. So the on the split, and for now I'm just going to do it like this. Now the split is going to send the sub to both filters, right? Sub will go to both filters, but the oscillator number 1 is going to go to the first filter, and then oscillator number 2, which I'm going to put something simple, is going to go to the second filter. So if I play something, this is chopping, the 1 is chopping the oscillator number 1 and the sub, so which is going to be the square. That's why we get a lot less. Now the other one is using the oscillator number 2, which is, mild because it's a sine wave. If I go up, we get more. So now we can have different interactions because we are just treating both oscillators independently. Now the sub will go to both filters, something that you cannot avoid. So as you can see, the filters are just super versatile. Okay, so now we need to move on to the next section, and it's going to be mod sources. We need to talk about the amp and all the different envelopes that we have right here. Much later, we're going to talk about the LFOs. So the amp is what controls the volume that goes out of the synthesizer, and this is something very common on all synthesizers. And what it uses is an ADSR type of envelope: attack, decay, sustain, release. Now, if you don't know what an ADSR is, you can go to the web and you can find a bunch of information of explaining you how an ADSR works. I'm gonna give you a very tiny explanation right now. If you are just maybe starting and you don't know how it works, I'm just gonna show you. Attack, decay, sustain, and release. Attack and decay are time-based knobs. The sustain is going to be a level. That's why we get dB and not milliseconds. And the release is a time-based control. So for now, I'm just going to go all the way down and I'm going to show you how this works. It's just pretty simple. All the way down. All the controls are way, way down. If I play something, notice that we get no sound. And I'm just playing something right here. Right? No sound. But it's because, again, this regulates the sound, the volume that goes out of the synth. Now, if I do a little bit of attack, it's going to decide how much time it's going to take from going from full silence all the way up to maximum volume and then go down. Right now, if I play it, it's going to take 682 milliseconds. I'm going to go to maybe a saw, something that we can hear a little bit better. So the sound goes up and then goes down. I'm going to go all the way down. Goes out, goes up. It's going to take an amount of time. If I do 3 seconds, it's going to take this amount of time to go up to full volume. When it reaches peak, it's going to go down. And I'm still holding the key. I'm not releasing the key. So the decay is going to decide how the sound is going to go down in volume. So it reaches the peak and then it needs to go down. How it's going to be doing this? Well, this is going to take this amount of time to go up and down. So I'm going to maybe use it like that, do it like that. So it's going to go up, and then it's going to go down in volume by this much, and it's going to take this long, right? So this is how the attack and the decay works. Goes up this amount of time, and it takes this amount of time to go down in volume. Now, I'm still holding the key, so it means that I want to sustain it. So that's the sustain. So the volume goes up, goes down, and I want to maybe sustain it at some point. So this is going to be where we want to sustain. I'm going to be sustaining right here. And we can see it on the vector scope, on the spectrum actually. It's going to go up, it's going to go down, and then it's going to stay at some point right here. And this is what the envelope is going to show you. The sound volume goes up, goes down, and sustains at some point. If you go all the way up on the sustain, it means that there is no decay. So you're just disabling whatever that happens right here. It's going to go up and stay right there. But if I go down, it's going to go down at some point. Now, when I release a key, I'm going to release it. I'm holding it right now. If I release a key in 3, 2, 1, the sound dies instantly. So the release means that how the sound is going to fade out and how much time it's going to take. If I do something like, for example, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, when I release the key, it slowly fades out. So this is, how an envelope works and how you shape it is going to be how the sound is gonna come out of the synthesizer. If I have something super short and plucky, it's gonna be, a lot more. Gonna be much pluckier. Okay, so that was an ADSR 101. I'm gonna be doing something like that and something like that, right? Just to get more boom right here. So the attack and the release, the attack, decay, and release, they have a slope. So right now, let's say that it's gonna take some amount of time, gonna do less release to go up. Now you can go and do it like this, or you can do it like this. So you can adjust the slope. So this is the second control, the second page that you have right here. How much slope you're gonna be adding to the attack. And instead of going super linear, it's like adding a little bit of movement, of motion. So you can do it linear or exponential. And logarithmic, of course. And the other one, notice that it's much more aggressive and it's going to sustain right here. If I go all the way down, it's going to be slow and then ramp up very abruptly. There you go. Now the same thing, you can do the same thing for the decay. Maybe go the other way. It's going to be sustaining and then abruptly going down, or the other way around. If I go to the decay, right? You get the same thing for the release. I'm gonna go, not there. I'm gonna go to the release, and you can do pretty much about the same thing. Linear, exponential, linear, logarithmic, right? And this is how it's going to release the keys. Notice that if I press something and I release the keys, it's gonna take a long time, but this one is just gonna be way quicker. So all of this is just depends on what you want to do. And it just was an ADSR 101 is how you set the slopes and everything else. It's gonna just manage what comes out of the synthesizer. So you will need to spend some time right here when you do a little bit of sound design. Now for now, I'm just gonna go to something more normal. I wouldn't say normal, just conventional. Let's say that's maybe the word. A little bit less of release because right now it's just too much. And if I play something, right, just super short, but not that short. So you have some options right here. You get the none. So the none, it means that this will work as a normal ADSR envelope. Now then you have another one, is the trigger. Now trigger means that it will remove the sustain from the equation. I'm going to be going maybe around there. Now I'm going to be playing a key and I'm going to press and hold the key and I'm not going to release it. Notice that at some point it's just going down. And I'm still holding the key. So this removes the sustain section out of the envelope. So there's no sustain even if I'm holding the keys. But this is just very cool for just, pluckier type of sounds. And then you get the other one, which is going to be the loop. Now the loop, if I play it, and I'm holding, I'm not pressing the same key many times. Just pressing one time and it's just holding it. It's going to loop this envelope and it's going to loop the whole cycle. Starts right here, does everything, then ends at the release and then starts over. And if I go really short, we are going to be getting almost like, an arpeggio or maybe a sequencer where we are triggering or re-triggering the notes several times, but we are just pressing and holding. So it depends on everything that you're, which sound that you're using, the filters and everything else. This could be really interesting. So we get the envelope 2 and the 3. Now the envelope 2 and 3 are just completely the same, to the amp envelope. They're just completely the same. We still get, the trigger and the loop. We have a time, we have a slope, and then we have a value. So the value is the only difference that we get from the amp envelope. Now, the thing is that the envelope number 2 and the 3 are dedicated to run modulations. And right now, we are just not using them. We need to connect them to something in order to do something. And what we do, we go to the matrix and we find the envelope 2 or 3, and then we just tie the envelope 2 or 3 to something, right? Okay, so we can talk about the matrix in a minute. For now, I just want to show you what we can do with the envelope. So right here, it says oscillator 1 position, then it says pitch, and then warp. So I'm going to do pitch because it's just very obvious. So if I go up in pitch, it's going to be going to positives, and then we go to negatives. And right here is how much of the envelope we use to do the pitch modulation. Then the envelope is going to decide how that pitch modulation is going to happen. Now, I'm going to be playing a key, and this is what happens. Right? So we are just doing pitch modulation. So now we need to decide what would we want to do with the envelope, because the pitch modulation is already happening. But maybe we just want to change the envelope. Now I'm going to be adding a little bit more release so we can really hear when we do something to the envelope number 2. So the attack, remember how this works. If you want to slow going up in pitch, well, then we just need to go to the attack and just make the change. Go make it longer. It's going to take a long time to go up in pitch. At some point, it's going to reach the peak, and it's going to go into decay. It's going to go back. It's going to sustain because I'm holding the key, and when I release it, enters the release, and the pitch goes back to the normal pitch. Again, this works as a normal envelope, right? We just tie it to something, and then we use it to, provide a modulation. Now remember that you can go into negatives. So instead of going up in pitch, we can go down in pitch. Right? And if I release it, it goes back to the original pitch. So again, all of this just pretty simple. You get your times and the slopes just like the amp envelope, but then you have a value. Now this is pretty unique to the synthesizer, and it's a pretty good addition. So these ones are going to be changing how the envelope works. So first I'm going to still, go into positives. So the initial, remember, when we play a key, the pitch is going up from your original pitch all the way to a peak, sustaining, and only then when we release it, it goes down to the original pitch. Now, the initial is going to change how that works. Right now, I'm playing a C, right? Maybe I don't want to start right there. So the initial is going to offset or just go to a different initial point. That's why it's called initial. Now, we don't start from the same pitch. We start higher. If I go to the center, that's a C, but I could just start from a different point. If I go all the way up, it's just starting all the way up. So that's all it is. The initial is going to change the initial point where the envelope takes effect. Now then you have the peak. So let me just maybe go right here. When I play a key, it's going to go up in pitch, and at some point it's going to reach its maximum point, which is the peak, and then it's going to start going down to the decay. So if I play just a key, it's going to go up. That's the peak, and then it goes down to something. Now you can decide where it's going to be peaking. Maybe I don't want to peak all the way up there. Maybe I want to peak before. So if I play it, it's not going all the way up, right? Now, most importantly, you can go into negatives right here. Instead of going up in pitch, you can go down in pitch. Or you just can do just a tiny little bit. Right. So the next one is going to be the sustain. Now, the sustain is just the same sustain, the same option that we have for the time. It works the same way. Where are we going to be sustaining? Is we going to be sustaining up? Or are we going to be sustaining down? Or, depends on what you want to do. Now then, the final is the release stage. What is going to happen when we release the keys? Do I want it? I want it for it to go down to the original pitch after I release the keys? Maybe I don't. Maybe I want to go up in pitch when we release the keys. So I'm going to be releasing in 3, 2, 1. And instead of going down to the original pitch, it's going up, right? So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to play. Goes up, down, sustains. And now I'm going to release it in 3, 2, 1, and goes up. So the options that we have right here is super cool because now we don't have to always use the normal ADSR values. We just can start changing them and create very unique type of motions. And just like I said before, you get the trigger, which is the same thing. Now before we are bypassing the sustain, and you get the loop, which is, if you have something a little bit slower, it's just going to be a little bit more fun. Right now, everything is just super fast. Right? It's just pretty unique type of sounds. Okay, so before we go to the LFOs, we need to talk about the matrix and understand how the matrix works. Now, this is like vital for this synthesizer, is a very important part. So on the matrix, you get a source and you get a target. So, of course, the top row is what is going to be, who will be providing the modulation. And in the left row right here, it's going to be the target, which is going to be the what is going to be modulated. Also, each target is going to give you information of what the target is and where the novel position is, positioned. For example, if I move this, it's going to be showing up right here. So it means that not everything can be modulated, but as soon as you move it, it's going to show up right here, just indicating you that you can modulate this with the matrix. And right here, behind, right there, you get information about where the position of the frequency is. So most of the values can go bipolar or unipolar. You can go to positives or negatives. If I go to this one, I can go up or I can go down. But this depends on the target. For example, if I go to the position, you cannot go down. You can go below 0%. Only if you're up, then you can go down. But if you're up, you cannot go up, right? So you need to be at 50% to go into positives or negatives. So by default, you have 4 different modulation sources, which is going to be the amp, we already talked about, the envelopes, and the LFOs. And this works pretty simple. You just stand on what you want to modulate, and you just modulate this, right? So really simple. I'm going to go to the envelope number 3. I'm going to be doing a little bit of modulation, and we are standing on the pitch, so it's going to be very easy to hear. So maybe I'm going to go to a saw, something like that. And as soon as I play it, we get the modulation. We can just hear that it's just doing some modulation. I'm going to go to the envelope 3. And we just can hear that we are doing something, just like we did before. If I want to do the pitch with the envelope and the LFO, well, we can do that as well. If I do a little bit of LFO, we are doing LFO and envelope number 3. And right here at the top, notice it's just telling you how that envelope is moving and what the LFO is doing as well. It's just very easy to see and, to modulate things. That's why I'm telling you, this is a very powerful tool. Now, to remove modulations, you just can double click, and then it's gone. So, for example, one of the most common modulations that you get on any synthesizer is modulating the frequency up or down, depending, depends on what the envelope is. So in this case, I'm just going to use the envelope. We just can modulate this position with a little bit of resonance just so we can hear. And then I'm going to be using the envelope number 2. And we can see and hear the modulation, right? If I go to the envelope number 2, which is can make this a little bit tighter if you wanted to. And again, you just need to go back and forward and just, adjust your envelopes to taste. If you want to go all the way aggressive, of course, the effect is just going to be much more aggressive. We just can do a tiny little bit. And if I want to go to negatives with this one, we can. Right? So again, it's just pretty simple to use. If we wanted to use a little bit of envelope modulation and a little bit of LFO, we can. And this is how you would do it. You just go to your source, pick your source, and select your source. Pick your target and then select your source and how much do you want to do of that source. Right, so that's it. There's not much I can teach you right here. Right now, you need to just to do to experiment a little bit and start modulating things. Now, still, you have a couple of things right here, which is the time and the amount. So I'm gonna go all the way up and all the way up. So it's gonna be super aggressive. If I play a key, it's gonna be again super aggressive. Now, the LFOs and the time, the envelopes, they depend on time, as we can see right here, and then we have the time in hertz. So the time is a global control. Let's say that we want to go faster. Well, we adjust the time, and by default it was 100%, but notice that now the time is different. What if I wanted to go the other way? So it's gonna go faster, 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 and faster. But the thing is that we are doing this on a global fashion. We are adjusting all the modulators globally. And that's what do we do? We adjust the time globally. Same with the amount. Maybe we are just being too aggressive. So what I do, we just can go down and we tone all the modulations down. So if they're too aggressive now, they're not. But we do it with the global control. And this is again super useful because maybe you're doing something and you decide it's too aggressive, so you just can go down on the amount globally. Right. So it's like scaling the amount or the time up or down. This is the first part of the matrix, right? Pretty simple. I'm just gonna double click and just get nothing. You can modulate with the amp, the envelope, and the LFOs, but then you have the MIDI. Now MIDI by default on any synthesizers, you can modulate. You get a pretty hardwired modulation depending on what you play. For example, the vel is going to be the velocity of your keys. The note is which key you're playing. So if I go to nothing on the velocity, I'm going to be playing the keys right now, and it goes into a certain level. Now maybe I want to modulate the amp with the velocity. So if I play soft, it's going to be softer. So it's going to be not that loud. But if I play hard, it's going to be louder. So this is the other way of adding modulation. Then you have note. So I'm going to go to, for example, the pitch. So if I go all the way up, now the note is going to modulate the pitch. You know what? I'm going to go to maybe something more visual. I'm going to use oscillator 1 and the warp. So every time I hit a note, it's going to warp right here, the oscillator. So if I play a high key, it's going to modulate it that way. If I play a lower key, it's going to be modulated differently. Maybe I'm being too aggressive. I'm going to do a little bit less. So higher key is going to be like that. I'm going to do a lower key, and it's, a little bit different. Lower key, higher key, lower key. And when you play different keys, the value of the note is going to modulate whatever you select right here very differently, right? But this is why it says notes. Your note, the value of your note is going to provide some kind of modulation. So then you have the PB, and this one is the pitch bend. So right here, the only thing you're doing is selecting how much up or how much down you go. If I play a key and I go to my pitch bend, I'm going to go up, and it goes up by 2 semitones or goes down by 2 semitones. But right here, you're just going to go a lot more aggressive. And if I go up, now it's going to be a lot more. Right, so going to double click, and then you have the pressure. By default is standing on oscillator warp. So if I play something, I'm going to do it a little bit more. There we go. So if I play something, you need to have a keyboard that supports aftertouch. If you don't have it, you cannot do it. So I'm going to be playing aftertouch in 3, 2, 1. There we go. So this is going to be the aftertouch. Right. Now the other one is going to be the mod wheel. So by default, you can, with your mod wheel, if you're using a MIDI controller, you can just sweep the wavetable. And this is what we are doing right now. We are just sweeping the wavetable. Now, random, it's very interesting. So, for example, let me use the warp. So I'm going to do nothing with the pressure, with the aftertouch, and I'm going to do something with the random. I'm going to go maybe about there. So if I play something, notice that it's just randomizing the position of the warp. So it's just warping it by some amount. Now, the thing is that this is random. So if I release the key and I play it again, now, again, is a different value. So what's random is the value after we play a key. It's going to give you a random value, so it's going to give you a random warp. So this is going to work for all the keys the same way. And if I keep playing the same key, we get different warps because again, it's just giving us a random value. This is how aggressive we are, and if we want to be less aggressive. So that's it. You get your normal matrix. You can choose a modulation with your MIDI controller or whatever it is that you're doing with MIDI. And then you get the MPE that, if you have an MPE controller, this is where you're going to be setting things up. All right, so let's talk about the LFOs. This is almost the last thing that we need to learn. And it's a pretty simple LFOs, but we have some cool features. Now, I'm going to be using the frequency to modulate. I'm going to be going to the matrix, and notice that right here we get the frequency, and I'm going to be using the LFO number 1, right? I'm going to go all the way up. And maybe I'm going to go to something with more harmonics. Okay. So whatever waveform that we have right here is going to be the one that's going to use to do the modulation. So we can see right here, we go up and down. If I go to a triangle, the motion is going to be a little bit different. If you go to a saw down or ramp down, it's going to be different. And the on and off of a square. And then we have sample and hold, which is going to be a way of random. Right? So far, it's just very simple. Now, then below, let me just maybe go to the sine wave. Right, so the rate is going to be how fast you go. And by default, it's in hertz. You're going to go down, and it's going to go slower. And double clicking is going to go to 1 hertz. Now, still, you can go right there and change it to divisions. And this is going to be, it's going to match your host tempo, your DAW tempo. Again, completely up to you. Now, then you have an amount. On the matrix, we are doing 100%. But the thing is that right here, you can decide how much is that 100%. So if I go down, the modulation is going to be smooth, right? It's a lot less. Even though we are doing 100%. And you get this because you can just, if you're using the same LFO to modulate different sources, you just go down on the amount for all the sources. If you're in 100% right here, then you're going to go one by one, adjusting the different values. Again, it's just completely up to you. Now, the shape is something cool that you don't get on a lot of synthesizers. You just, usually you get your waveforms and that's it. Now, the shape is just going to alter the shape of the fundamental waveform. And this is going to allow you to create, different LFOs. Now, all of them will just change in some fashion. For example, right here, we can go to a ramp down from a triangle to a ramp down, triangle. If you go all the way up, if you're wondering, can we get a ramp up? Well, the triangle is going to do it by adjusting the shape. Same thing with the triangle, right? Different movements. You just get a different LFO instruction, and this will change whatever it is that you're doing. Right? Okay, so let me just double click and go back to the sine wave. Now, then you have the offset. I'm going to show you this in a minute because it goes in hand in hand with the retrigger. Right, so if you don't know what a retrigger is, it's something that you get on a lot of synthesizers, plugins or, analog synthesizers or even digital synthesizers. The retrigger means that every time that you play a key, if you're modulating a source, the LFO will always start from the beginning. And right here, we can see the whole cycle of the LFO. It starts right here, then goes up, goes down, and so on and on and on. So if I play a key and retrigger is on, it means that it will always start from this point. And the easiest way that I can illustrate this is by going to a square. And I'm going to go to the matrix, disable this, and I'm going to do the pitch. I'm going to go all the way up on the pitch. And we are doing it with an LFO. So if I play it, notice it's going up and down in pitch. And I'm pressing and holding. And it's because right here, it goes up and then goes down. It's like an on and off. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to be playing the same key multiple times. Let me adjust the envelope and remove the release. It's going to be a little bit easier to hear. And I'm going to go back to the LFO. So I'm going to be playing a key. And now the instruction says that whenever we play a key, since we are retriggering, it always starts from the top right here. So I'm going to be playing a key. And every time I play a key, we are still using the LFO, but notice that we don't hear that there's an LFO. It always re-triggers and starts up. That's the instruction. As soon as I play and hold, it's going to go down and do the LFO because I'm holding it. But the retrigger always starts from the beginning. It's going to re-trigger the waveform. If I disable this, the waveform, the LFO, it's going to run freely in the background. And there is no retriggering, so it's not listening to our keys. It will not restart again. So sometimes it's going to be up and sometimes it's going to be down because, again, it's not listening to our keys. It's not re-triggering. So if you want a super constant LFO that re-triggers every time that you play a key, well, maybe you need to enable the re-trigger. If you want something more, old-fashioned or just, not so controllable, disable that, and sometimes it's going to be up or down. Still, when you go to re-trigger, for example, when I play a key, I know that it will always start up. But with the offset, you can offset the starting of the waveform of the LFO, and sometimes maybe it's going to start down. So now it's going to be starting down and not up because the beginning of the waveform is down. We go there, starts up, starts down. Same if we go to other waveforms. Right here it's going to start right there at the bottom. And we hear that motion. As soon as I start offsetting this, it's going to sound differently. So you need to tune this, to shape this, to do whatever it is that you want to do. When you are working with an LFO, of course. That's why you get the offset. Okay, so no offset, and we have the retrigger on. As soon as I play a key, it will start going up and down. Now, instead of doing this, I'm going to go to the filter because we can see it right here. So it's going to be a little bit easier to see. I'm going to go to Alpha 1, going back, and I'm going to be playing. And as soon as I play it, it goes up and down. I know this. Now, then you have something called attack. Now, usually on analog synthesizers, on any other synthesizer, this is called a fade. It's going to fade in. So, this is in milliseconds, and it decides how long it's going to take for the LFO to take full effect. So it's a way of fading in the modulation. So if I play a key now, I want you to take a look at the frequency, how it's going to start modulating. First it's super smooth, and then at some point, it's going to take some amount of time, and then it reaches the, full amplitude, and we get, the full modulation. So again, it's a way of fading in the modulation. And usually calls fade. Right here, it's called A for attack. Okay, so let's talk about the last thing, and it's a very important thing for the synthesizer, and it's the volume and all the controls that we have right here. So, let's start easy. You get your volume. I'm gonna go with something, something that has more harmonics. You get the volume, you can go down volume, double click, it's gonna take you to -5.7, which is the default, or you just can go up. Right, so then you have the poly. Now, poly means that, is a polyphonic synthesizer. You just can play many keys at once. You can do up to 8, or you can do less if you wanted to. Now, still, you can just click it, and now it's going to be a mono synthesizer. You cannot play many keys at the same time. Right now, I'm making a try it, and we are just getting one single key. So again, it's the mono synth. You just can play one single key at a time. Now, one more thing, notice that when I'm going to poly, we don't get an option for glide. And it's because we cannot do it. We can only do it with mono. And again, I'm going to go something with more, bite. So I play a key, and when I play a new one, it's just going and playing that key. Now, I'm going to go aggressive on the glide. I'm going to be playing a key, I'm going to release it, and then play a new one. Notice that there's no glide or portamento. Is not gliding or sliding to the next note, which is what the glide does. And it's because you need to hold a key before it glides. So I'm going to be playing a key, right? I'm playing that one. And now I'm going to be playing a higher key, but I'm still holding the previous one. And then, and only then, it's going to glide. So I'm playing now 2 keys at the same time. I'm going to release the lowest one. So you always need to be playing a key in order to glide. If you're playing keys and just releasing them before you play the next key, it will not do any glide. But this is how it works on the synthesizer. All different synthesizers, the different synthesizers work on a different way when it gets to portamento and gliding and all of that. They all work in a different way. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the Unison. Now, if you don't know what Unison is, we press a key and we stack 1, 2, or 3 or more voices to that same key. That's what, Unison does. And when you stack voices and you spread them, it's going to give you this super big wide sound. So right now, Unison is off. So when I play a key, we just get a single key. Now, I'm going to be going to Unison, and I'm going to be selecting the first one, because you have a lot of modes, and they are just a little bit different. Classic is the classic Unison. Since Unison is stacking voices, you can choose how many voices you can stack. You can stack up to 8, but, maybe 8 is a little bit too much. So 3, for now, is just more than enough. As soon as you play a key, notice that it's just super wide. You get a big sound. Now, behind the scenes, to get this big sound, since you're stacking 3 voices, all the voices are just the same waveform, the same voice. They're doing exactly the same. But the thing is that since you're detuning them, they just get wide. If this is what the amount decides. If I go all the way down on this, notice that the sound is a little bit phasey and it's louder. And it's because there's almost no separation to the voices. As soon as you start separating the voices, then you get the big sound. And you can go really crazy on the detuning until you get all this. And all this is just going to be more if you go more voices. And at some point, it's just going to be a little bit too much. But again, it's just completely up to you. Right. The different modes, classic means that you're equally spacing the voices. So this is just like the normal Unison. You just detune the voices equally. Then you have different variations. You have the shimmer one. So I'm going to go to that shimmer. Now, right here, as soon as I play it, notice this sounds a little bit weird. I wouldn't say weird, but it's just a little bit different. I'm going to switch to the classic. Notice that there's a lot of movement with the shimmer. Alright, so I'm going to go to 2 voices. We can see it right here. Go to classic, and they move on a different way. Now, what the shimmer does, what it's doing, it's behind the scenes, is randomly detuning in very small values up and down. But it's still controlled because, it's just making this super wide sound, but it's just detuning it on small values up and down. It's like a randomizing, with an alpha, the detuning. This is what the shimmer does. Now, if I play a chord, and maybe going to go down in volume, you get this shimmerish type of movement. When you add a reverb, you're going to get a lot of movement, for example. The classic, just a little bit different. Right. But still, the shimmer is very controlled. You can hear that it's going up and down. I'm going to go to noise. That is what happens. It's still doing that same small, very, small detuning. But now it's going to be controlled by a random source, which is the, it's going to be a noise. Since noise is a very unpredictable type of, sound source, the detuning is just, going up and down randomly. It's not super controlled as the shimmer that is going up and down, up and down. So all of them, all the different modes, they give you something different. All right. Okay, so let me just go to the phase sync. I'm going to be playing a key. Okay. I noticed that there's nothing weird at the beginning, and I'm going to go to the classic and just switch between classic and phase sync. Not so much of a difference, right? Okay. So what the phase sync is going to do, and this is not super common. I've encountered this on different synthesizers, but again, it's just not super common. So when you play a key, the phase of the the waveforms and all the voices are usually kind of a separated or spread or offset it in a different way, so you can get this unison 5. Now, On some synthesizers, especially digital synthesizers, the phase of the voices and the waveform, everything starts on the same place, and then it gets detuned. So this is the phase sync. Now, as soon as I play it, notice that on the classic, as soon as I play a key, it's just wider right away. But on the phase sync, first it's going to be like we get a big transient at the beginning, and then it goes wide. Well, still a little bit different. The phase sync, you get that peak at the very beginning. So what happens right here is that at the beginning, they're all phase synced. They're all in the same spot. So you get a bigger transient because they're not, offset. That's what, you get. But it's just a peak. It's just the very beginning of whatever it is that you're doing. Then if I press and hold, after the peak, after the transient, then it goes wide and it's going to spread. But at the beginning, it starts louder. All right, so then you have the position spread, and this one is a little bit, a little bit weird. I'm gonna go down, and I'm gonna be playing a key. We are gonna be standing. I'm gonna stand on a triangle. So as soon as I play it, notice that on the oscilloscope we get triangle and triangle. There's a little bit of offset between left and right, which is, fine. It's normal. It's what it should do. So as soon as I go up, notice what happens to the other one. It's like shifting it. So yeah, we are turning that waveform to something else, and it's happening on both, of course. So this is what it will do. It will just, detune it just a tiny little bit. There's a little bit of detuning, but it's changing the waveform of the different copies. So it's like a variation of Unison. It's not really a Unison effect. You're still using many voices, but it's just, changing the waveform, which is not just changing the tuning. It's just not just the tuning. And since it says position spread, I guess it's just messing with the position right here. Now then the other one is going to be the random spread. This one is going to be the random note. So it's the same idea. But at the beginning, notice that it starts moving. Sometimes it's going to be slower. Sometimes it's going to be faster. So it's just, again, messing with the waveforms and the tuning. But it's just random. It's different every time I play it. And if I, do it faster, sometimes you're going to get that peak. Sometimes it's going to be more like a sine wave. So it's just, messing with pretty much everything, which is, a very cool thing. It's just nice to have. It's just a little bit different. If I do more voices, just gonna get a little bit more aggressive. What happens if I do it with chords? Maybe a little bit higher, less amp, less. Every time I play it, it's just a little bit different. Which is completely different from the classic one, which is the normal one. Everything is the same and it's super constant. Now, you don't have to use it. I mean, it's a cool thing that we get it. Maybe it's not something super common, but could be useful when you're creating a pageant. It might give you that extra, thing that you're looking for. Okay, so if all of this was useful, remember to like and subscribe. And if you have the money and you want to buy me a coffee just to say thanks, you can go to the links in the description, and you have a link for PayPal, you have YouTube thanks, and you have a Patreon. You can go and be a 1-month patron and just buy me a coffee that way. Right, so see you on the next one.